For 43 grand, you can get a very well-equipped Kona EV that has 261 miles of range, every safety system that Hyundai offers, and enough tech to embarrass luxury cars. But here's the question that no one's asking. Does any of that matter if driving it feels like operating a very expensive kitchen appliance? Because let's be honest, most electric crossovers have about as much personality as a dishwasher. They're quiet, efficient, and completely forgettable the moment you park them. So after a week with this thing, I have one question. Did Hyundai build just another competent appliance, or did they build something that I actually want to drive? What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, Hyundai has spent many decades trying to prove that they can build cars as good as anyone else. But the difference with building a driver's car and something that's just competent is a totally different question. And the thing is, electric powertrains have a reputation for creating that disconnect. And the real test of this Kona EV is not just that it works as an EV, but it's whether you'd actually choose to drive this when you don't have to. And before we get into what it's like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. The first thing you should appreciate about this Kona Electric is that it does not use the same architecture and platform of the Ioniq 5. Yes, this platform is the same one used as the internal combustion engine Kona. It's a single motor, it is front-wheel drive, it makes 201 horsepower and 188 pounds of torque, 261 miles of promised range. The battery is 64.8 kilowatt hours. 100 kilowatts maximum DC charge rate, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Steering is electrically assisted. Suspension's based around McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear with standard dampers. Four-wheel disc brakes, of course. Wheels and tires are 17s. I think 19s are part of the N-Line package, and curb weight is 3,891 pounds. Now, at this trim level, this is extremely well equipped. There's Hyundai's highway driving assist, smart cruise control, blind spot monitoring, Bose premium audio, heated and ventilated front seats. And it's worth noting the battery's warranty is 10 years or 100,000 miles. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Behind the wheel, there's not much difference between this Kona EV and the internal combustion engine version. And what that means is you're set up perfectly behind the wheel. Lots of adjustment in the seat as well as the steering column. You're seated well off the floors, so you've got a taller seating position, which is why people buy crossovers. But what that means is you've got fantastic visibility in all directions, but the fundamentals are great. Love the shape and size of the steering wheel, encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3. You can see the instrument cluster clearly, and this driver interface just works. This seat is actually very comfortable even on longer drives. Lots of adjustments, so pretty much anybody can get comfortable behind the wheel. It's got a decent amount of support when the corners get interesting, and overall really dig these seats. On the other hand, I'm not a big fan of synthetic leather or leatherette or whatever they call it in Hyundai speak. I'd much prefer a very high-tech cloth. On the other hand, I understand why people prefer this, especially those with young families, and kids can make a mess of interiors, no doubt about that. The instrument cluster is digital and very easy to read in all kinds of lighting conditions. This is basically almost a 2/3 width screen. The infotainment screen, again, like the instrument cluster, very clear, very legible in all kinds of lighting conditions. The UI is very simple, straightforward, and it's very easy to use. I use it on wireless CarPlay. It works just fine for me. Wireless charger is here, keeps my phone in place, and everything just works the way it should. No issues with wireless connectivity whatsoever. Ergonomics are modern Hyundai, Hyundai, what that means is everything is logical, simple, straightforward. You can find everything you're looking for, which is a refreshing change from some other manufacturers. This is just very simple and easy to deal with. In terms of spaciousness, well, here in the front row, lots of room for you and your passenger. In that second row, well, here's the thing. I can fit behind myself in the seating position and could probably tolerate a modestly long drive, but there's not a tremendous amount of room. Keep in mind, this is a Kona after all. It's not a big SUV by any stretch of the imagination, but kids, no problem. They'll be happy there, have lots of space. Do appreciate the abundance of storage, some pockets in the doors, these awesome cup holders, which I really dig the way they work. And then when you're not using them, you've got additional storage there. You've got some storage under the armrest if you want to keep some items concealed. I've got a couple things in there right now. And overall, can't complain. Under the hatch, there's a decent amount of room as well. Plus, there's a little bit of storage under the seat. And in the front, there's a little bit of storage there as well. Not quite sure what you'd put there, but in case you need it, there's a little bit of storage under that hood. Now, with respect to visibility, you've got tall glass all around, decent visibility out the back, large outboard mirrors, that's fantastic. And when you adjust your 3 mirrors properly, blind spots aren't real. The other thing about visibility, as with other Hyundais and Genesis models, when you do indicate your turn the turn signal, you do get the display of the outboard camera, so you've got no excuses for not seeing things to the left or to the right when you want to make a lane change, for example. But otherwise, adjust your mirrors properly. Blind spots aren't real, but I do appreciate having that additional layer of safety that this car provides. Like many other modern car makers, Hyundai's also decided that you need to go through 17 different layers of menus just to adjust the temperature. No, just kidding. Climate controls are here. They're actually buttons, very easy to deal with, and I really appreciate that, and I think you will too. The seating position's actually really well thought out, clearly designed by people who actually drive. The steering wheel adjusts properly, the pedals are exactly where your feet expect them, and the seat doesn't require an engineering degree to adjust to your comfort. It's like Hyundai remembered that humans have to operate this thing. The only questionable decision is putting the gear selector on the steering column, but honestly, after Tesla's yoke experiments and some of the other electronic shifters, this shifter actually kind of makes sense. For a compact crossover, this Kona Electric makes use of this interior space quite well. The front's just fine, and the rear seats are okay for actual humans, assuming those humans aren't planning to procreate and create taller offspring. Cargo space is more than adequate for most lifestyles, unless your lifestyle involves hauling a lot of things and a lot of people. But here's the thing, most people buy crossovers for the taller seating position and better visibility that goes along with it, plus the illusion of capability, not because they're hauling building materials every weekend, and for most buyers, this works perfectly. The infotainment system standard interface responds faster than every government website, and I know that's a low bar, but this system is actually very good and very well designed. Now, in terms of acceleration, this is a single motor EV, makes 200-ish horsepower and almost 200 pounds of torque, and it weighs almost 4,000 pounds. So it's not exactly a rocket ship. It'll do 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds flat, top speed somewhere north of 100 miles an hour, and that's more than adequate given the performance design brief of this Kona Electric. But it is quick enough. Given that it is front-wheel drive, if you do ask for maximum acceleration and have a little bit of steering lock, well, you do get a little bit of torque steer, a little bit of wiggle from that steering wheel from time to time to let you know that those tires are struggling to put all of the torque you're asking for to the ground. The best thing about electric motors is they don't mess around with power delivery. They respond instantly. Kind of like that friend who answers texts in 2 seconds flat. Step on the accelerator and the 188 pounds of torque hits instantly. There's 0 turbo lag, no mechanical lag, no waiting for downshifts, no asking the transmission computer for permission. It's automotive instant gratification in an age where everything else feels like 3 subscription services and a customer support chat. The trade-off is you get exactly what you want, but part of you misses having to work for it. And let's be honest, 200 horsepower in this package isn't going to pin you to the back of your seat or question your morality. But here's what it will do. It'll give you confident acceleration in every situation you'll actually encounter. Highway merging, no problem. Passing slow traffic, done without drama. The key insight is that peak power numbers are marketing fantasy for most drivers. What matters is having adequate power when you need it, delivered predictably every time. This isn't about bragging at your next Cars and Coffee. It's about delivering competent performance on a day-to-day basis. All of that torque goes to those front wheels instantly, which sounds like a recipe for tire smoking wheel spin and maybe some understeer if you're ham-fisted. In reality, the traction control is sophisticated enough to manage the power delivery without completely neutering the experience. You can definitely overwhelm the front tires if you're determined enough, but in normal driving, it just pulls forward predictably. It's not going to set your heart racing, but it's not going to put you in a ditch either. Think of it as the automotive equivalent as a reliable friend. Not the most exciting person at the party, but the one who will get you home safely afterwards. The ride and handling package here is definitely tuned to be crowd pleasing, that's for sure, but that's only telling part of the story. What I really dig about this package is the steering and the braking. Steering's precise, it's predictable, but the brakes are excellent, which is often hard to do in an EV because the engineers have to deal with blending regenerative braking as well as brake actuation when you actually step on the brake pedal. And they've done an excellent job here. It is impossible to discern the difference. And the thing is with this, there are 4 levels of brake regen. I drive it on the maximum level, which makes this basically a one pedal driving situation, at least in the city, and it works very well. But the brakes, on the other hand, they're strong, they're powerful. I get great feedback from that brake pedal as well. And that is impressive because when you've got confidence in the brake pedal, you know you can stop your vehicle. And in this case, you can confidently stop this Kona Electric and make sure that you avoid a crash when somebody inevitably does something stupid in front of you. The suspension does a fantastic job of soaking up road imperfections and then not transmitting them into the cabin. That's fantastic. These 17s with the taller sidewall certainly have something to do with that, because every once in a while over larger road imperfections, there's some secondary movement, and it takes the dampers that additional second or two to just settle the Kona. And I'd like to see a little bit more compression and rebound here, giving me a little bit more confidence with this Kona Electric. On the other hand, because the battery pack is in the floor, it's got a much lower center of gravity than the Kona internal combustion engine crossover, that's for sure. So it corners a little bit flatter and body roll is a little bit more reduced. But keep in mind, this suspension program here is definitely more about compliance and comfort than it is outright handling. That's the thing, it doesn't feel top heavy in directional changes and doesn't lean into corners like it's trying to take a nap. It's still a crossover, so it's not going to redefine your relationship with the laws of physics, but it handles with more composure than your typical high-riding family hauler. From a dynamic standpoint, let's establish some realistic expectations. This is an electric crossover, not an MX-5 with a lift kit. It's not going to dance through corners or inspire you to seek out twisty roads on Sunday mornings like an Elantra N would. What it will do is handle competently, predictably, and without drama. The steering has actual weight to it. The chassis feels composed rather than just outright sloppy. And the suspension strikes a reasonable balance between comfort and control. It's not exciting, but it's more than competent enough for the important stuff, and sometimes boring is what some people are looking for. How do you spec yours? Well, I have some thoughts. What you are looking at is a 2025 Hyundai Kona Electric. This is the limited trim in the United States. In Canada, this is the preferred with the Ultimate package. And speaking of Ultimate, this paint color is Ultimate Red Metallic. Inside, that is the black leather red, of course. Base price in the US is $41,150. Add $500 for this red metallic paint for a total as tested of $41,650. In Canada, base price is $46,499 for the preferred. Add $4,800 for the Ultimate package, and you get an as tested price in Canada of $51,549. $169, and these prices are before freight, taxes, incentives, etc. In terms of speccing yours, you have some options, and what's especially appealing to me is at least the N-line trim in the United States. We don't get that here in Canada, and that's visually distinctive from this limited trim. That would be very interesting to me. Now, here's the thing about EVs and where they actually start making sense. For the average driver, you'll save roughly $150 per month on fuel costs compared to a similar gas crossover, assuming you do most of your charging at home and don't live in California, where electricity costs more than imported water. Maintenance is almost non-existent. No oil changes, no transmission service, no timing belt replacement at 100,000 miles. The battery warranty covers you for 10 years or 100,000 miles, which is longer than most people keep cars anyway. And that's the thing, this math actually might work if you can do the math and don't buy a car solely based on paint color. And before you get all excited about ordering your Kona EV, we did a deep dive into what owners are saying about their real-world ownership experiences. The reason is owner communities have uncovered some fascinating realities that somehow never make it into typical reviews. First, the big one. That advertised 100 kilowatt DC fast charging capability seems to be a little bit of fiction. Real owners consistently report actual charging speeds of 45 to 50 kilowatts. I saw 60 maximum on a 125 kilowatt charger, and that's regardless of whether they're plugged into a 150 kilowatt charger or a 350 kilowatt charger. This isn't a network issue or a temperature problem. It's a fundamental limitation that makes road trips significantly longer than Hyundai might suggest. Multiple owners have documented this across different charging networks, so those 43-minute charging claims just became 60+ minutes in reality. Now, here's something that's interesting. The thermal management system is genuinely complex. 3 separate coolant loops with computer-controlled valves that can operate in heating, cooling, or low-temp radiator modes. This isn't Tesla's crude stall the motor for heat approach. It's proper automotive thermal engineering that explains why the Kona EV maintains consistent performance across temperature ranges better than most EVs. The reality is this Kona EV is a little bit more sophisticated than if you were judging this book by its cover, and real-world ownership experiences definitely reflect that, which I genuinely appreciate because it reveals much more than I could ever uncover in a week-long test. My verdict, well, the truth about this Kona Electric is somewhere in there, and fact of the matter is, it's not just simply an appliance. The steering has some actual weight to it, the chassis feels composed rather than just compliant, and there are moments where you remember you're driving something, not just being transported by it. But it's not going to stir your soul either. What Hyundai has built is something rarer, an electric crossover that respects the act of driving without pretending to be something it isn't. And in a market filled with soulless transportation pods and overwrought high-performance EVs, this might be the electric crossover that most people need. After spending a week with this, I think this Kona Electric is something rare in the automotive world. It's something that keeps its promises without over-promising in the first place. It's quick enough to feel modern, and it's efficient enough to make sense financially if you're looking for a city EV. Plus, it's practical enough for family duty and engaging enough to not make you hate your commute. The build quality is solid, and at this trim level, the feature set is comprehensive, and the price is pretty fair for what you get. It's not going to change EV conversations, but it's going to quietly satisfy a lot of customers who just want a good car that happens to be electric. And in 2025, the best thing a car company can do is build something that works exactly as promised. The biggest compliment you can give this Kona Electric is that it doesn't need compliments. It just works, which is more valuable than you think until you realize you bought something that doesn't. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 Hyundai Kona Electric. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, you're not new. You know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this, and as always, sharing is caring. So please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch, and Hyundai still builds some fine manuals. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time, and remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Kona EVs. And since you've hung around this long, we'll have a look at a different take on electric crossover transportation, and one that I like from Hyundai. It's the Ioniq 5N. I think you might enjoy that episode. Thanks again for watching. See you again next time.